934s. Nice to have you tune back in again this week. I really like hearing from you. I've seen kids send me videos of things toppling off the top of stuff and people writing answers about whether heavy things fall faster than light things. Thank you to the kids that went and did the experiment and checked really carefully. Now, I asked you to try and put aside any thoughts that you had in your head about whether heavy things fall faster or not. It's really hard in science to do that. It's hard to let go of ideas that we already think that we know about. But it's really important when you do an experiment to try and get those thoughts out of your head and just watch what actually happens. I was really impressed by a couple of kids in particular. One boy, his name starts with H. Can't say your whole name, sorry buddy. But he did this experiment and he said, Mrs. Mack, I was really surprised by what I found because they seemed to land at the same time. And then he said, but then I tried it with a football and a card, a piece of cardboard, and the card took a long time to get to the ground, but that's because it was blowing around in the wind. Now, this boy, I hope you know who you are, has really hit the nail on the head. Hi, Abby.
Hi.
Sorry to interrupt your homework.
That's alright, you do it a lot. I'm used to it by now.
It's true. This is why you have to go to school normally, so that your mum doesn't interrupt you.
Yeah.
This segment is called Is This Funny to a Teenager? And I show Abby a cartoon that I found on the internet that's science related. And if Abby thinks it's funny, she'll pick one of these two faces and then you get to see it. But if she doesn't think it's funny, you'll never ever get to see it. Alright Abby, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
That's good, that one.
Hey! You get to see it. Okay, I'll show you after. So the first thing I need to address with you after last week's lesson is the idea of how gravity pulls things down. Now, lots of us have heard of the force of gravity, which pulls things down. It means that when I throw something up in the air, it falls on the ground. So all of us think of gravity pulling that way. Now, when I ask kids to do that picture of, the earth with the people dropping the things on the sides, almost every year I have kids doing all the arrows pointing down off the earth. So the person on the top of the world who drops something goes down towards the earth, but the people on the sides and the bottom, their objects look like they're falling off into space. Gravity is actually a force that comes from the center of our planet, on the planet Earth, and it's pulling everything toward the center. So here I have my trusty Earth from last week, and if this was Earth, gravity's right in the middle of this ball. I can't touch it because it's in the center. And anything on this ball, it's kind of like it's being sucked into the center. So if you are on the top and you drop something, it will go down towards the center. But if you are on the other side of the world, like I have some friends overseas in Europe, and when they drop balls, the balls don't drop down this way and go off into space. They also go toward the center. So those people on the other side of the world, they feel like they're the right way up too, because gravity is pulling them in to the middle of our planet. So when you go to your book this week, if you did this picture and you drew the people dropping their objects and they were kind of falling off down into space somewhere, I want you to make all the arrows in your picture point in towards the center, toward the earth. Because if you drop something, no matter where on the earth you are, on the bottom or on the sides, it will always drop toward the center of the planet, which to us usually feels like it's going down because we're standing up. Now this is really confusing, but actually all things have gravity. All things with matter. So the earth has gravity. The moon has gravity. I have gravity. This basketball here has gravity. Every object that has mass has gravity, kind of pulling things to its center. But when they're small things like this, the force isn't very big, so you can't really feel it. I don't feel like I'm being sucked onto this ball, but I do get sucked down onto the earth if I try and jump off it. Now, the bigger the object, the more gravity, the more force it has to pull you in. So this is the cool thing. If you go to the moon is smaller than the Earth. So the gravity on the moon, it doesn't pull you as strongly. And that's why astronauts who walked on the moon 50 years ago, when they walked, they didn't just walk along and do normal steps. They would kind of leap in the air and take these really big kind of jumps. I don't know if you've ever seen movies of people walking on the moon, but it's really cool because the gravity isn't pulling them as strongly because there isn't as much of it. The force isn't as strong on the moon because it's smaller. And that makes me think, imagine if you went to a huge planet that's bigger than Earth, like Jupiter or something. It's massive, and you'd be trying to walk along, but you'd be like sucked down to the ground, and you'd be like dragging yourself along the ground. Because there'd be so much force in the gravity that you wouldn't be able to walk properly. Wouldn't that be great? But we can't do that. We live on Earth. So today we're going to talk about gravity on Earth. Hello, so we're back again, and some of you went and did this experiment last week. I'm just going to show you what happened to mine when I did it. So you should have had two objects on the table, one heavy, one light, but both the same shape as each other. So when you push them off, you will notice something interesting. Now, I don't know if you saw what I just saw, but to me it looks like the heavy thing and the light thing are falling at the same time as each other. Do heavier things fall faster than light things? This is a really tricky question. Now, I'm going to tell you something that's really complicated, but I'm going to try and explain it to you as this lesson goes on. Heavy things and light things actually fall at the same rate if there's nothing in their way. Now, this doesn't really make sense. You're probably thinking, but that's stupid, because if I get a feather and a basketball, of course the feather's going to fall slower than the basketball. And that leads us on to talk about a new type of force today called air resistance. Okay, so the force that we're looking at today, along with gravity, is air resistance. And air resistance is just the force of air pushing on something when something moves. You could be looking at a car, which is driving along a road like this, and the air is kind of pushing on the front, slowing it down. Or an aeroplane. Or what about a parachute? So when someone jumps out of an aeroplane with a parachute and they pull that string, the parachute opens, and that person is falling. Gravity is pulling them down. But pushing up on that parachute is air. And this force, we call it air resistance. And as that person falls with the big parachute above them, the air pushes up and makes it billow out and helps to slow down their fall. And today you're going to be making parachutes, because who doesn't love making parachutes? So I just got an old piece of plastic that I had lying around the house and cut it into a square. And then you need to cut 4 pieces of string or wool or cotton the same length as each other, which you can see here. Then you tie each of those pieces of string to a different corner of your parachute. Then you gather together the 4 pieces of string at the ends, sticky tape them together, and then attach them to some kind of weight. This could be a little Lego man like I've done, or it could be a marble or anything that has a bit of weight. Any kid can make a parachute, but not every kid can turn it into a science experiment, which is what we are all about. And my question is this: is there a difference in the speed that a parachute falls if you make it larger or smaller? So you're going to go and you're going to make me 2 parachutes. I want one that has a small parachute size and one that has a large parachute size. You might even make a giant one or a mini one as well. And then I want you to take those parachutes outside and see which one falls faster. and then let me know. Answer the question on Google Classroom. It's very rainy and dark out here now, but parachutes can still work. So once you've got your parachute made and you've got a little something hanging on the bottom, it could be a marble or a Lego man, then you take it outside and you're going to hold it up as high as you can, and then you're going to drop it and see if it glides down. Now, you know you've got to make more than one, so you're going to have to test them against each other. Now, when you're testing two parachutes against each other, you've got to think about what makes it a fair test. Is it a fair test if the chutes are held at the same height? Or is it a fair test if the little man is held at the same height? You're going to have to work all of that out. And when you do a fair test, you know that the length of the string needs to be the same for both parachutes, and that the weight of the little man has to be the same for both parachutes. The only difference is allowed to be the size of the parachute. And then I want you to answer the question, do bigger parachutes or smaller parachutes fall faster? All right, I hope you enjoy doing that this week with your family. When I was a young girl, my parents joined us up to the zoo, and we used to go there all the time as a family. And one of my very favourite enclosures to go and see was the Great Flight Aviary, which had all these birds in it. And if you've been to the zoo, you'll know it. There's this huge aviary, and through the middle of it is a boardwalk that is actually risen up above the ground, and you look down onto the birds in this incredible cage. Now, in particular, I remember always wanting to see this one bird, and it was called the satin bowerbird. And this bird, I've drawn another beautiful picture for you. This bird actually collects things. And I used to look forward to seeing it, because every time we went there, this bird would have as many blue things as it could find around its bower. Now, bowerbirds are notorious for collecting things. They collect anything they can find, but it has to be the colour they like. And each species has a different colour that they like. So the satin bowerbird, which is a dark blue, almost black kind of colour, collects blue things. But in real life, I've seen a satin bowerbird nest. I'll show you right now. So in that photograph, you can see blue straws, blue bottle tops. Then we went to Northern Territory, and up there, one day I heard this bird going nuts in the tree, and I looked over and saw there was another type of bowerbird in the tree, and it was called a great bowerbird. And great bowerbirds, they don't collect blue things, they like white things and green things and grey things, and so the bower that they made was all green and grey and white. So have a look at this photo. My mum and dad saw a bird in Central Australia called the Western bowerbird, and that one was collecting white things, and it had little snail shells and bits of bones and things like that in there. Now, I love all the Australian ones a lot, but when I was researching this, I actually found a video that I'd seen years ago by David Attenborough about, I think, the best bowerbird on the planet. It's called the Vogelkop, which in German means bird head. It's a bird head. And this bird creates a bower unlike anything you've ever seen. I'm going to attach a video in Google Classroom that I'd love for you to watch after this one and just see what this bird collects. They collect beetle wings. They collect red, orange flowers. They collect fungi and put them in beautiful little piles. One of them even collects deer poo with little fungi growing out the top of it. And not only do they collect all these gorgeous things, but they put them all in little piles around their beautiful bower, which is shaped a bit more like a tent, I suppose, and they attract females to that. They are absolutely gorgeous. Last week on Science in LegoLand. 430 Whitehorse students radioed in to help Danielle and Sunny solve the mystery of why sand can be different colours. These were some of the responses. The next day, at school, Danielle and Sunny gave the sand to their science teacher, who showed them what it looked like under the microscope.
Sand is different colours because it can be made of so many different things. Let's have a look at a few.
The sandy sand looked like this. The brownie sand looked like this. The white sand looked like this. The purplish sand looked like this. And the black sand looked like this.
Some sands are made from tiny pieces of rock, others are from different coloured minerals, and some are made from tiny shells and animal skeletons.
And with that, the mystery was solved. Did you guess why sand is different colours? So the question that we asked about, do heavier things fall faster than light things, actually comes down not to the weight of an object, but to how much air is pushing up on an object. Now, this leads the question, what if you could remove the air? What if you could take away air and then drop two things with no air so we could see what gravity does? What if we could suck all the air out of a room and then drop a bowling ball and a feather at the same time? What would we find out? And it just so happens that someone has done exactly that. And I will link that video underneath this video, either in YouTube or in Google Classroom. So wherever you're watching this, you can find it. It's one of my all-time favorite, mind-blowing videos. I hope you really enjoy watching it too. It's by Brian Cox, who's a famous scientist and is really great at teaching this kind of stuff. All right, until next week, I'll see you later. Bye.